Hey everybody, it's Kyle,
And it's Kristina.
and this is the CP Chronicles. We're finally together for once.
I know, it doesn't happen very often.
I know, it's been a long time, but we're bringing you a good show today. It's Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, and we just want to talk about what that means for us, but also Kristina has all her fun tools for success that she's gathered over the years that we thought it'd be important to share with you guys.
Yeah, if you looked at my house, you'd think I went up to the hospital here in town and just took everything that I thought was cool because I've collected a lot of things over the last couple of years. Some of which I think is helpful not just to people with CP, but really anybody that exercises. I mean, a lot of this has to do with muscle soreness, which is something any athlete is going to experience at some point. So
Yeah.
this is tools for all, not just tools for people with CP. But being Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, I kind of thought this was the perfect time for us to talk about some of these things. So,
Hi Cindy, thanks for joining us today.
don't mind me, I have to reach 3 miles to highlight our comments today because we're both in the same camera frame. But hey, Cindy.
Glad to have you here with us today on Facebook Live. But why don't we start off with the facts that you were talking about with CP?
All right. So one of the things that I found when I was reading about CP is that there's no designated federal funding for CP research. And I guess I found that really surprising, being that CP is like the most common disability in childhood in the United States. So we're all about early detection and treatment and starting kids in physical therapy, but to not have designated funding for that just seems crazy to me. And the last time that data on CP was collected was over 10 years ago. So we're not actually even sure if the prevalence of CP has increased or decreased because there is no recent data
Wow, I didn't know that.
here in the United States. Yeah, the more and more I read from the Cerebral Palsy Foundation, I realize why they're posting every day this month saying, call your legislators and tell them, we need funding for this.
And a lot changes in 10 years. So the fact that there's no...
Oh gosh, yeah, and we put a pandemic in the middle of it to boot. That's not going to affect anything. I mean, I think that's gonna, it's really crazy to me. So I guess it's something that's been kind of a wake up call for me, like realizing, hey, this is something, that does need more funding. It's something we need to make people aware of. I mean, I at least feel good that we do September every September, and we raise money for CP that way through our steps, and everything.
I guess it just makes me now more aware of September's fun and it's cool that we're raising money, but to hear that there is no funding and that money that we raise is that much more important, it's just wow.
Yeah.
So raise your voice if you got CP, because we need some funding, we need some research.
Well, and if you think about it, if there was federal funding for those types of things, there might be, money that you could apply for to help pay for things like physical therapy that I'm going through right now. None of that is there, and you're just kind of left to your own devices to try to afford stuff, even when insurance covers it. Not everybody has insurance that just covers everything. You're still left with some big bills. And another stat that I read from the Cerebral Palsy Foundation is that a very large percent of families cannot afford the equipment that their child needs. I want to say it was over half of families have a hard time affording those things and have to really reach out to other resources just to afford a proper chair or a proper canes, all of that stuff.
Sorry.
Nikki's watching us on her TV. Oh my gosh,
hi, Nikki,
we're celebrities.
Hey
girl, good to see ya.
Glad to have you here.
You're wearing your CP shirt today, Lena. I thought about that, but I wasn't sure where mine was. And yeah, I've got a little bit of green on me here. I've got blue and green going. We really should have.
We failed, you guys.
We should have worn. Kyle made us shirts, darn it. We should have worn those.
Yeah, we should. I did not even think about that.
I did want to talk also today about the types of CP. I'm gonna apologize, everybody. I've got all my stats right here on my phone. Kyle and I both have spastic cerebral palsy. We also are spastic diplegic, which means that only two limbs are affected, primarily our legs. But there are other types of CP. Spastic accounts for around 80% of cerebral palsy cases. So that means that most people with CP have really, really tight muscles that are going to resist stretching. That's essentially spasticity. You can stretch it, but if you're going to stretch, like for example, my ankles, like my therapist is going to get some resistance when she's doing that because that spasticity is going to pull against.
Yeah, they naturally don't want to do
stretching. They generally don't want to do that. Besides spasticity, there's dyskinesia. That's 6% of people. Slow and uncontrollable jerky movements characterizes that. Hands, feet, arms, or legs. Face muscles and tongue may be overactive. So that's going to create difficulty with eating and other daily functions. And now everybody's severity of these symptoms is obviously different as well. So we have to keep that in mind. There's ataxia, which affects another 6%. Balance and depth perception. People with this type of CP generally walk in an unsteady manner and have a hard time with quick or fine motor movements, buttoning shirts and things like that. But I had trouble with all of that as a kid as well, and I don't have that type of CP. It's just sometimes those fine motor skills really do have to be fine-tuned, and that's where things like PT and OT come into play. Spasticity, I know we talked about, okay, it says 70 to 80%. I had said 80, but muscles appear stiff and tight, and it occurs in different forms depending on the different body parts affected. And then there's also mixed. So you might have a mix of, spastic CP and dyskinesia, for example, depending on the person. And so that's gonna mean if you have a mixed type that you've got a couple of different areas of your brain that have been affected by that. Also, interestingly enough, Kyle and I are both diplegic, but there's also hemiplegia, which is going to affect just one side, just the right or just the left. And quadriplegic as well.
Water break. But you brought up OT. I had to go through many years of OT and speech therapy and physical therapy. I had the trifecta.
That was one thing I never had with speech therapy because I don't, if y'all know me, I never had problems talking to anybody. My mom always said that we had one walking and one talking, and that is very much still the truth today.
Yeah. So for a while there, I actually forgot what I had, and I thought, what did I tell you I had?
You were telling me for a while that you had spastic quadriplegia, and I could have sworn, I could have sworn my mom said from the beginning that because Kyle and I went to preschool together, and I could have sworn my mom said, well, you two have the same type.
Well, because it's, through my YouTube, this person who studied CP was asking me all these questions about how it affects me. He was like, yeah, I think you might have this. And I was like, I don't know. Yeah. So he got me. And then I was like, wait, I gotta go back and ask. But it still does affect my arms to some degree. I mean, don't ask me to play the guitar. I don't have the finger dexterity to do that. But yeah, CP, it challenges us every day.
It definitely does. And I think there's people out there too, like friends that I've talked to, they're like, oh, it affects your hands at all? I mean, you play piano. I was like, yeah, I play piano, but I'm not anything spectacular. I mean, I still have my struggles. And when I did play piano more regularly, I had to really, really practice to make that work. Cindy says she has green nail polish on now. She figures she's good till the end of the month. But I still wear green when I can. Yeah, it's just a good way to raise awareness. I mean, there are still people out there that don't know what CP is, although I hope through this show we've been able to kind of expose more people to that. So
It is surprising, and the thing about awareness with CP is those that aren't aware of it can have a very skewed view of what CP is because of what they see in the media. So I think a more active representation of what it is to live with CP is needed in just everyday life, but also in the movies, on TV, to actually show people like that's what it is. Because you can read a diagnosis and you can read the side effects, but those are just, if you don't know what it looks like in practice, like just because it says I have that doesn't mean that that's what I deal with. It's a very
Every
wide.
case is different. And I think that's why it's nice to know somebody with a certain disability when you want to learn more about it, because you get to hear it from their experience and not just from an article on the web where you read about, the symptoms and the issues that are involved. But I can't say there's not good parts to it too. I think it definitely makes me have to be a little bit more innovative, and it's definitely tested my patience over the last couple of years while I'm trying to figure things out, because we can't necessarily always do things in the same way as other people, and I think that, in a sense, sort of builds up character, not to be like,
It does.
oh, yay me, but I mean, it really makes you work hard and think outside the box sometimes when you've got this challenge coming at you and you're not sure what to do about it.
Yeah. I will say I'm thankful that CP has made me a compassionate person or a sympathetic person, because I struggle daily, so I understand what it's like to have to keep pushing in order to get where you need to go. Quite literally, like my body sometimes doesn't want to get out of bed, but it's like I'm not going to sit here in bed all day. Like I have to get up, get moving, and do something. Doesn't have to be major, but like literally sometimes they gotta push to. I remember going to college and being like, there are some days I had to give in and think I can't make it to class today. Like the idea of trekking all the way across campus.
Sometimes in the snow. Yeah. By the way, I just said that to my mom the other day. I was like, I really don't miss walking in weather like this on a college campus. Miss a lot of things about college, but not that.
Yeah. So while it does test your patience, or at least my patience, can't speak for anyone.
Same here, obviously. Okay.
But
it's true for us anyway.
There's good things about I think it's important to realize there are good things about CP. And for me, it is being compassionate. And it is, the determination that it forces you to have if you want to get anywhere or do anything. Like you are fighting against your own body. And
yes, I couldn't have put it any better. I've said that so many times these last couple of years. I'm fighting against my body, fighting against my spasticity to try to get my body to do what it wants. And right now I feel like I'm winning. There's definitely been some steps in the right direction.
Maybe tug of war is a good way to put it.
Yeah, you gain a little, you lose a little, and you just keep going, hoping for the best. I'm going to highlight some comments here.
Thank you guys for commenting so much already.
They're coming so fast we can't keep up. Lena says she had PT, OT, and speech therapy. When she speaks, sometimes it is hard for me to talk, especially when I get excited. I remember to take my time and be patient. It's okay. That's who I am. Absolutely. I think I mumble a lot too. Some of my coworkers are like, "What?" And I have to stop. And I didn't have speech therapy, but I think I still have that. I think we all have that when we get really excited about something too.
Yeah, it's.
Cindy says they're getting an education on CP where she lives. I'm always telling them about it and what causes it. And I'm sure they're getting to know you, Cindy, and some of the things challenges that you face every day. So probably good for them to know about it, because you might not be the only person who lives there they come into contact with that, has CP. It really is a lot more common than what people think it is.
And a lot of people assume that it's your legs that, people like, your legs are not working. It is the brain.
It's literally from the brain. Yeah, people don't realize that. And it's in the name, right? Cerebral palsy, but
people are like, what's wrong with your legs? Well, nothing's necessarily wrong with my legs. It's just the signals from my brain aren't reaching where they need to
Right.
be.
The muscles don't react the way that a normal. Well, I don't like that word. Why do I say that word?
Typical.
Your typical person. The muscles don't react the way the typical person's muscles does. But what's typical anyway? And we'll just say people that don't have CP.
Right.
We'll make it easier. One of the things I wanted to talk about today too, I read this article the other day that was just interesting to me, not something I personally want to do.
She just read this to me before the show.
I just read it to Kyle 5 minutes before the show. I said, Kyle, I gotta tell you about this because I want to talk about it. There is a such thing as a surgery to help remove spasticity. And I read an article about a woman who, had really struggled with her CP and admitted in the article that she maybe hadn't been taking the best care of herself, but that it just took over and she just felt like this surgery was the only way out. The surgery is called selective dorsal rhizotomy, or SDR, and it's a surgical procedure where the spasticity is addressed at the neuromuscular root, so inside your muscles. In this particular procedure, they're going to take those rootlets and they test them, and those that are misfiring and causing the spasticity in certain muscles are cut. So they're cutting that connection for that spasticity, and the outcome, if it goes well, is that there's a potential for spasticity to be removed. But my thoughts on that initially was, well, what a shock to the body. I mean, I think about the physical therapy that I've been in these last couple of years, and I think about the times where we do dry needling or other treatments that temporarily loosen things up. I think about how after some of those treatments, I'm super unbalanced, falling over, especially the first time. I get up and I'm like, whoa, this is different.
I feel like you'd be a huge noodle.
You'd be a huge noodle. I'm not saying that it's not something that could work for people. I think for the right person, it could be great. I think for me, the best thing is to manage the symptoms. I can't really imagine right now that much of a shock to my body. And honestly, if I had the choice to do something like that, I don't know that I would, simply because I've worked so hard the last couple of years to come where I've come, and I've come there not without support, but I've come there through my own hard work. And if I can fight against my own body this much, I'm not going to expect some surgical procedure to just do it for me. I don't think that would be the best thing for me, knowing that I don't like change and knowing how drastic that would be.
And I just worry, what if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do?
Yeah.
Or what are the signs? If all goes well, then this is what happens. But what is the reverse of when it doesn't?
Right. What happens when it doesn't? And that's not to be a Debbie Downer. That's being realistic. And that SDR, again, selective dorsal rhizotomy, would be something that would be a ginormous discussion for an individual and their doctor.
Yeah,
before you make any of those decisions. It really caught my eye because this person, I think, was in their 30s, and the title of the article was on the Mighty. It was something like, why I'm having surgery for my CP at 35. And I thought, ooh, surgery at 35, not saying that can't happen, but I feel like a majority of this surgeries are done when you're a kid. So the fact that that person was in their 30s looking at something, I'm like, well, why? What is the reasoning behind that? So
yeah. I feel like there needs to be more studies, more information about it before I could make a definitive answer. But right now, it was definitely let's wait and see. But I definitely am leaning more towards just working hard, because until we have a lot of concrete data that supports both sides of the coin,
I would say I would personally, again, I was just putting it out there. So
how do you guys feel about it? Please let us.
Would anybody else try something like that? Would you just say, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. We're not judging you if you want to do that. I just don't think that it's my cup of tea.
Lena's got something to say.
Lena's got a comment here about some people have not hearing about CP before. She says she has to educate people where she lives because they haven't heard of it before. I'm the only one that's confined to a power chair. Of course, there are people who don't want to learn and just stare instead. I just smile at them. That's true. Not everybody is going to want to learn, but I think we can do what we can to show it off in a positive way and try to help people understand what we're going through.
We're always, in the theme of CP, we're always going to meet resistance in like advocating for CP because people aren't going to want to take the time to understand it. It is something that can be understood with time, but some people aren't going to want to take the time to do that. Mm-hmm. So I think it is important to just stay positive. You meet those people that don't want to hear it, and you say, I tried, and you will continue to find people that will listen. Definitely. And those are the people that matter, because the more people that, oh, thank you. That's why we do this show, so people can become more educated and just have a different perspective than they might already have. That's why we both do YouTube videos, here and there about CP, just to show people, like, we're people. And we have this disability, and it isn't scary,
or contagious.
Yeah.
You can't get it from us.
Yeah. It is pretty. And like I said, and I've mentioned this in the past on a show, but my uncle asked me, like, if I had kids, would my kids have cerebral palsy? And the answer is, maybe, but it's not because of me. It really is an accident as to, you lose oxygen to your brain. That's right. An accident.
Right.
So.
And that shocked me too. It makes me realize, like, some of our own family members have known us all of our lives, but they still might not know everything there is to know about CP. So I think everybody has something to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's important to not get comfortable with like that. Like, I think advocating, you always do it in a sense. I'm not saying you do it every single day, but like, if you are an advocate and you enjoy doing it, don't give up on it, because there are still people that need to be educated. You might think, I've covered so many people. Oh, there's a lot more that
out there that you haven't. Yeah, no, most definitely. I did have some products today that I'm just going to kind of sprinkle in here into this awesome conversation. We appreciate everybody's comments. Nikki says she definitely feels like CP gets put on the back burner, unlike other disabilities that are sometimes kind of at the forefront and more people know about them and know what they are. And again, that kind of ties back to the fact that there is no federal funding. Until we get some federal funding and our lawmakers know something about it, I think it's going to be difficult for us to really make a change, a meaningful change for people with CP.
And you said earlier that, to me, before the show, that there is no one care plan. There is no...
No, and that's something with other disabilities that they do have. Now, I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but it's not like, okay, you have CP, here's the roadmap. It's so different for every person. And yes, there are a lot of different... there's a lot of different things in place now for getting people into physical therapy earlier. I mean, the early detection thing that was really big when we were younger is still around. Mm-hmm. But there's no care plan that's necessarily set that says this is kind of the baseline. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to follow someone throughout their life and help them manage their symptoms. So I just thought that it was interesting that it's kind of like we've talked about before. You turn 18 and then you're on.
Adios. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, I think every 18-year-old should get an exercise program at 18, and then maybe every year after that, at least going in for a checkup to see how are things going. What are your goals? We don't want to stop at 18. We want to be able to understand our symptoms enough to progress and to get stronger and get better and be able to do the things we want to do in life. But if we don't have adequate supports to do that,
They're setting you up for
we
failure.
can't do that. You know, your goals from when you're 18 and when you're 28 are going to be different. There needs to be support in there to help you to reach those goals as they change.
Agreed. Don't be like me and wait till something hurts so bad. You have to address
Well,
that.
I can say the same thing. Don't be like me and stand like a hunchback and wonder why it hurts to bend down and put your shoes on. And maybe I should have stretched a little bit more so that my back wasn't messed up, my hips weren't messed up. And you really have to listen to your body, and you can't ignore things, because when you do, you end up regretting. I think I can speak for myself, at least. You end up regretting all the things that you didn't do to take care of yourself. And then you spend a couple of years in physical therapy, you learn your lesson, and you eventually get better. But you've got to take that step to ask for help too. That's my other thing. I know that a lot of us are prideful and we don't want to do that, but it's very important to be able to ask for help when you need it, to make sure that you're on track to be the best you that you can be with the least amount of pain. That's actually what my physical therapist has said. She goes, we want the best Kristina with the least amount of pain. And, you know, there's times where I'd look at her teary-eyed and say, I want that too. And I still do. But you've just got to realize too that there's going to be, you know, roadblocks in the way. And it really helps to have family members, but especially, you know, physical therapists and other professionals behind you who really listen to you and help you to get the services that you need to keep reaching those goals.
That is the problem of really the guidance stopping at 18. At 18, I didn't think about long term. My brain wasn't, you know, we're not even fully developed till 25.
Wired. Yeah.
So you don't even, at least for me, I didn't think about like, where am I going to be at 30? Because at 18, you're just, you know, it was like, oh, I'm going to be 21 in a couple of years. But it's like, where am I going to be at 30? Where am I going to be at 40, 50, 60?
You don't have that ability to look ahead like that, I don't think, at 18. And that's through no fault of our own, but that's how it goes. And so I guess my thing that I would advocate for is not just funding for CP on the federal level for that research, but funding for programs to follow kids into a little bit older, a little bit longer into their adulthood. Just
maybe even 25, you know, just because, you know, that's when brain's fully developed. That's when you're really kind of through all the growing and the, because even at 18, you're still going through a lot. So I think 25, even if it's just like an extension program, like, hey, you can sign up for this, and I don't know, something.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I never would have said that. I was so happy to be done with physical therapy at 18. But boy, I've learned my lesson that just because you don't have the therapist right there being like, Kristina, let's stretch your hamstrings, doesn't mean you could forget to stretch your hamstrings.
Like even this show, I'm like, am I sitting up properly?
Yeah, so same. Nikki says, what types of therapies did you have as a kid? So I had PT and OT, and then Kyle had PT, OT, and speech therapy. Kevin, thanks for joining us. We're great. We're just here talking a little bit about CP and what it's taught us, and going to showcase some tools to help those with CP and without for fitness and wellness in general. And I think this might be a good segue to start sort of talking about a little bit of that. If we need to speak up, could you let us know? Also, with our computer being so far away, we're trying to speak up a little bit, but if you're having a hard time hearing us, please let us know. The first product that I wanted to talk about was a suggestion from my physical therapist, who gave it to me to try, and now I swear by it. And it's got essential oils in it. I've never been an essential oil person. I'm sure some of that is stress relieving and whatnot, but I really wasn't sure when I was told that maybe I could try this. I've got here a muscle rub. It's called Deep Blue. It's from doTERRA. And it's It's a soothing and cooling lotion. Reading the reviews, it helps people with a variety of things from arthritis to CP. It's a great post-workout if you've been working out and you're sore. It's a nice alternative to like a BioFreeze or something like that. I had a friend who used it on a Charlie horse because I sent him some sample packs and it helps the Charlie horse. So it really does work, and it's just a really nice addition to massage and stretching and other things that those of us with CP do to help with the muscle soreness, the spasticity, the spasms. I actually first started using this to help with spasms. When I got my new braces, the spasms were just awful in my calves and feet because they weren't used to all the extra movement with the braces, and this really, really helped calm things down. You don't need a lot. You only need about a pea-sized drop, and it can cover up to about 8 inches, 8 like square inches, I guess, or whatever, like an 8-inch circumference of whatever part of your leg or whatever you're adding it to. So really nice addition. Nice smelling too. Kind of smells like spearmint. Definitely a must-have, at least to try. Even on Amazon, they have like $10 sample packs, so you can order some sample packs just to try it out.
That's not bad at all.
And again, you know, some people it might not help them as much, but the fact that it helped me and our friend DJ, who normally puts us on the radio for our show, he's making music today, but I know he'll watch the replay. So I was glad that I was able to help DJ, and I was really glad that I had a generous physical therapist that was like, hey, Kristina, try this lotion. So that's the Deep Blue. If you search Deep Blue on Amazon, you can get it. You can also get it cheaper if you have a friend who has a membership. So if you know anybody that's into essential oils, see if they've got a membership first and see if you can get something at a cheaper price.
I've been playing with this whole time.
This is a Lacrosse Ball. Good for massage. You can use it just kind of roll your calves with it. It's not anything super expensive. I think it cost me $5 on Amazon. Even cheaper alternative for massage of bottom of your feet and calves and other things, tennis ball. I mean, pretty sure you can get these at the dollar store. I think I bought like a 6-pack from Walmart, and I just continuously keep one in my suitcase for when I go to my parents' house. Other massage tools. This is also really good in conjunction with whatever massage. So to put it on the muscles, let it set for a little while, like 10-20 minutes, get cold, and then start massaging. Good stuff. Cheap at-home remedies. Rolling pin, okay? It rolls. So if you've got a muscle knot somewhere, you can very gently work out a knot with one of these. This happens to be just an old wood one that my mom gave to me because I was needing something to massage and I didn't have a rolling pin. I don't bake very often. So you don't have to spend money. You could spend $2 for a
Go to
rolling
mom's.
pin. Go to mom's
house.
Mom's house or Walmart for $2 and get, it doesn't have to be, this is pretty heavy duty, but this is great for massage also. And I did buy something that I think is a little bit better, but this was also not very cheap, or not very expensive, rather. This is a muscle roller, and it's got each of these little knots move individually. So this just gets more of a better massage because it's just there's more spots where it can help you out. So this is another good option that I got off Amazon for muscle massage. You can put it under, you could roll the top of your leg, you can put it under your calves and just kind of roll it back and forth. Really easy to use and nice for athletes too, not just people with CP. Anybody who's got muscle soreness, massage is always a good thing. And yes, you can go schedule and get a massage, but so many things can be treated at home super cheaply with things like a tennis ball.
Because you can't always, ooh, I can't have 4 massages 4 days in a row because
No, I mean, so much of CP is managing those symptoms on your own, and even when you're in physical therapy, like I still have to manage in between sessions. Yes, I can send a message to my wonderful physical therapist to be like, help me. But it's also nice now that I have a lot of tools to really help manage on my own. I don't feel as bewildered now when something goes sideways because I'm like, okay, I have all of these different things that I can do. Let me try some of these. And if I'm not sure, I can always reach out and get more support, guidance on what to use or what not to do. Another thing with muscle aches is depending on your cause, heat or ice can work. I got this particular little heating pad at like one of those vendor fairs where people have their homemade goods, and it can be frozen or it can go in the microwave. I think this one's got rice in it. But heat and ice, or a mix of those two, can help with muscle aches as well. And I know when I had back problems for a while, I pretty much lived on the heating pad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As miserable as it was, like that really helps. And when you're hurting, you should do everything you can to not be hurting because there's a lot of resources out there.
Right. Would you say this pillow that I'm using back here is kind of a tool because it does? I mean, this couch isn't the most supportive.
No, I will definitely sit on this couch with a pillow behind me so that my feet can sit flat on the floor. All those things are just going to promote good posture, and I think people don't realize always how they're sitting. We know when we sit a lot. There are always times when we sit a lot, but how you're sitting is very important for everybody, but especially for people with CP. If you're not sitting correctly, you can have problems with the low back, your neck, I think everybody gets a little bit of that text neck if you're looking down at your phone, you've just got to be really mindful of posture. And something as simple as putting a pillow behind you, just sit your feet flat on the floor, can be super duper helpful.
And something that you have for posture that we both actually have is the Dyna Disc.
Oh, that was a great segue, Kyle. We're just on a roll here today. This is called the Dyna Disc. It is, I've got it blown up pretty thick right now. I don't always have it blown up that much. It's kind of like a smaller version of, let's say, like a therapy ball. If you're sitting on a therapy ball for balance things, it's very, very good for core control. If you have hip issues, it can actually be good. It kind of
forces you to find like what's aligned because you're sitting. It's designed to like kind of throw you off balance, so you have to find the right position.
You're gonna engage better muscles to promote better posture.
Yeah.
So
I still sit on mine like I'll just like I'm watching TV,
or like I can stick it behind my back right now, and maybe I will because I'm not sitting the greatest right now. It's another tool just to help support. I kind of do the same thing at work. I can either sit on it or put it behind me, depending on what chair I'm in. And
it just helps you align your spine better, and find like. Yeah.
And even the Cerebral Palsy Foundation talks about the need to change positions for people with CP, especially people who sit for extended periods of time. You want to make sure that you're reclining it like in a different way, or that just to give yourself some movement. No one is comfortable sitting in the same position forever and ever. Like, you've got to have some variety. Besides the, moving around and changing positions thing, which I think is helpful for anybody. Because you get anybody that has an office job,
and you don't want
get some of the anybody that's got an office job is going to have some of those same, I sat too long issues, low back issues. It can all escalate if you're not careful. Some of the other recommendations from the CP Foundation were interesting too. They're recommending 60 minutes of moderate to intense activity a day for
Which to
those
me
living with
sounds
CP.
like but like
It does sound like a lot. It's not so difficult though. I will say in the summer months when it's lighter for longer, because then I can work all day and still go walk for an hour. It becomes a little bit harder in the winter, and you have to be a little bit more creative. But my thing is too, like, I'm on my feet all day at work, so I don't exercise every day. Like, I don't go to the gym every day, but I do still get, at least 60 minutes of that, like, moving around all the time, I think, throughout the day. I right now exercise about 4 or 5 days a week, because I do think it's also important, if you're doing anything intense, to have some rest days in there, just to give your body a chance to recover. And then sleep was the other thing I wanted to touch on. How many hours of sleep would you say you get on the regular, Kyle?
6 to 7 if I'm lucky.
Okay. It's interesting because it's about the same here. I feel better when I have closer to 7, but I usually get less than that. Like, it's usually between 6 and 7. They're recommending 8 to 10 for adults with CP. 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I looked at that and I thought, well, it would be nice. It would be nice. But, that brings to mind the fact that we do have to be very, very mindful of fatigue for people with CP. You can't go and not rest. I think we, even more so than the average person,
because that's when
need to rest.
You get quote unquote sloppy in like trying to maintain your posture and even just stepping correctly. When you get tired, you
90%
get lazy.
of my falls happen when I'm tired, and so I'll second that. You get lazy when you get fatigued, and you have to be able to recognize when you fatigue so that you can be more careful, or force yourself to, okay, I need to go sit down now before I do fall over.
Yeah, because falls, I mean, especially as you get older, they can be really detrimental. Because if it's a bad fall, that could set you back quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay when they're the pop back up kind of falls. You just keep going. But the ones where it's like, ooh, I gotta sit on the ground here and like assess.
Right.
Those are the scary ones because you're like, oh God.
Yeah.
A tool that I have that Kristina doesn't have, but I didn't bring here because it's too heavy to bring, is a vibration plate. I'm not saying it's a tool for everyone, but I've noticed it's helped me with balance, because even just sitting in a chair and putting my feet on the vibration plate, it just vibrates at different speeds. So it it helps your muscles contract. And I have noticed, I'm not saying it's gigantic of a difference, but when I do use it pretty regularly, I do feel more stable. There's many different types of them. The one I have was like $200 on Amazon. I'm not saying you need to run out and get that. But if you're looking for something different to try, that's also a suggestion.
No, I think it's great just to have options. Everybody's needs are different, but I guess the most important thing is that it works for you, and you have a tool that's going to help you to continue doing the things that you enjoy doing. Like we said before, so much of CP is about managing some of the challenges that you face, and any tool that's going to help you to manage those things is going to be a big, big plus. Let's see what else we've got here. I've got one more toy.
Oh, maybe 2, because I see one over there in the corner that's too big to show on camera.
Oh, all right. Well, okay. Everybody needs to stretch, right? Kyle's got one of these. Yeah. His is more of an elastic. This is a fabric strap. You can go cheap on these. I'm not saying you can't.
I think mine was only like $5.
But I feel like this one gives me more resistance because it's sturdier, so it's not letting me cheat. Just my own thoughts. This is an OPTP stretch out strap. It's got all kinds of loops all along it. so that you can do different things. I will lay on my stomach, hook it to my foot, and pull my foot up like towards me, and stretch out my hip. You can sit on the floor, and like if you're like me and you really can't touch your toes when you're sitting on the floor with your legs out in front of you, this is a great option. Loop it around the bottom of your foot and then just pull it
up
for a stretch. So
yes. I also have a set of therapy bands, just the ones that you put like around your knees, to like help strengthen my knees, because that's been a real issue for me. It's my knees. So therapy bands are good for that. Either like laying on your back with your knees up and using a band to like try to stretch your knees apart. That's been really good for me and my particular needs.
That resistance is definitely a good strengthening. But I would say the good thing about being in physical therapy now is I kind of know which ones to use for what, so that I'm doing things properly. So, I guess I would just encourage people that if something doesn't feel right, to reach out to a doctor or a physical therapist to make sure that you're using those correctly. I'm not saying that Kyle's using them incorrectly. I'm just saying anything with guidance is better than
without. And that's where those came from, being in physical therapy for a little while. They were like, yeah, that would be really good for you, so you should continue to do that. So asking questions is good. Even now, I feel like I could be like, hey, Chris, like if I really needed to, I'd be like, Kristina, I need to come with you to therapy and I need to ask a question, or reach out on OSF.
Or you can call too,
Yeah. It is scary to think like I have to manage this myself, but you really don't have to do it by yourself.
You don't have
to. They just
kind
of make you think that when you're like, oh, because it took me, after I got out of physical therapy, and then after my orthopedic said that I was good a few years later at 23, it was like, okay, like I'm good, I guess. And then you have a false sense of, at least I did, a false sense of security that you've made it, you're gonna stay there. You don't stay there unless you work at it.
You don't stay there with CP. I think it's definitely something that has to be maintained. Donna here has a comment. She says she has a hard time sleeping. And that tends to be an issue for people with CP, because somewhere over half of people with CP have some type of chronic pain that's going to interfere with their sleep cycle. I guess the best thing that I could say for me with sleeping is I realize that it does take me a while to fall asleep sometimes, so I need to be in bed earlier. I think having a good routine before bed, whether it's you're stretching out, you're getting your body into the routine of, okay, we're going to wind down, we're going to relax. Maybe you decide that you're stiff and you want to use some Deep Blue. My plug for Deep Blue here. Maybe,
not sponsored.
Maybe, no, we're not sponsored, by the way. Maybe we should be. Maybe you decide you want to use a cooling cream or something just to help your muscles relax. Even just like a mint lotion or something, refreshing can sort of help soothe and relax those muscles. So you're not alone, Donna. That pain that keeps you up is a real big problem for a lot of people with CP.
And you at one point were using melatonin.
I don't use melatonin anymore, only because I take baclofen, and that actually makes me a little groggy in the evening, because that's when I take my biggest dose. So I haven't really needed the melatonin, but yeah, melatonin is not a habit-forming thing. Your body makes it naturally. Sometimes it's good just to take one a little while before bed, give your body some help in getting to sleep, so that you can stay there for longer and get a better quality sleep, because that's going to help you with your pain the next day, your energy level, and it's going to help you just keep everything going.
Does anyone have any questions for us on the tools that we've shown, or just your experiences with other tools that we haven't shown? Please feel free to put those in the comments as well.
Right. Is there something else we're missing that we haven't thought about? Let us know. Yeah, I feel like I've really developed this kind of arsenal almost of tools over the last couple of years that has just been extremely helpful in a lot of different situations. And every once in a while, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of sore. And then I go, okay, well, let's try some massage. Let's stretch. Like, you've got to still remind yourself to use some of those tools that you have available. But sometimes it's not something obvious. Like, okay, who would have thought that I'd be using a rolling pin to massage my calves? You don't have to go crazy to where it hurts you, but it can be super helpful to have something like that on hand.
Something,
a tennis ball. Some of these things are so simple. And yet I took my physical therapist being like, hey, why don't you try a tennis ball for me to think about that?
yeah.
It's kind of crazy when you think about how simple some of this stuff can be. One of the other things that I think is probably good to have on hand. This is, I think, my last tool. I think I've covered everything. I got everything out and set it over here so I wouldn't forget. This is Aquaphor. It's a healing ointment. It protects minor wounds, cuts, scrapes, and burns. It's kind of like a liquid Band-Aid. That's kind of what I would call it. But this actually really helped when I first got my new braces and we were still in the adjusting process and I had some irritation on my shins. Put a little bit of this on. It's not that nothing's going to rub, but it's going to help your skin from being so irritated, from that rubbing until you can get something adjusted properly. It's also really nice in the winter for like me when my hands crack. You just put a little bit on. So this is like a useful for everybody thing, but my physical therapist recommended it. It comes in a little tube. It's only 1.75 ounces, but you don't really need that much. I picked it up at Walgreens. You can find it at pretty much any pharmacy or even at Walmart. I think I've seen something like it, just not the Aquaphor brand.
Wow, we thought we were worried with the tools, like, oh, are we going to be able to talk for a whole hour? But then I look and it's
we should have known we weren't going to have that problem.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, I mean, I hope this has been helpful for everybody. I just felt like I've had so many helpful tools as well as helpful people in my life over the last couple of years, and I wanted to let you all know some of the things that you can use that don't always cost you very much money to make your life so much easier. I really wish that I would have known about some of these things before going back to physical therapy, because I think about when I had been in Spain traveling, maybe my calves wouldn't have hurt so bad every day if I just used a tennis ball. There's so many things that I didn't even think about at that point that really could have been helpful to me.
Yeah. What hindsight is 2020, but that's why we wanted to do this show, that in case somebody else is struggling, that there are tools available to you.
Donna is asking what the name of the cream is again. I don't want to forget to tell you that. Okay, so Aquaphor is the cream it's like a liquid Band-Aid, but it's for when things are rubbing. I'm going to bring it closer to the camera. I know there we go, Aquaphor. You can find that at Walgreens. And then the other cream I talked about, I'm not sure if you were on then, Donna, or if that was just the first time you commented. So I'll show this one again. This is my Deep Blue. This is my big spasm helper. If you're struggling with spasms and soreness, this cooling cream can really, really help just relax everything. It's not going to stop you from ever having spasms, but let me tell you, when I first got my braces and I would be spasming all night, this made a huge difference putting this on before I went to bed. It really just made me that much more relaxed, and I felt like I got to sleep easier because I wasn't awake spasming so much. Oops.
Yeah, and I remember you'd be like, oh, my legs are just like, I can't, I'm just struggling so bad.
Miserable. I mean, I was really struggling, and I try not to be a complainer, but sometimes I was just like, this is just, there was times where it was too much. Oh, another thing. Hold on.
Ooh.
And there's just more and more and more. And we weren't able to hook up to the radio today, so we might just keep talking a little bit, and hopefully we'll get a replay going for our listeners on the Disability Global broadcast next week sometime, so you all can hear it too. I got ankle supports. I know when I talked about my new braces, a lot of you were on to hear about that. The new braces are going well, but these ankle supports, I know it's hard for you to see. They go on, they have a little flap here, and they lace up the front, and then they have a couple of Velcro straps that come around the front to really stabilize everything. These are ankle stabilizers, and they're, I guess, a really good option for anybody that is going through a transition, that maybe they're getting a different type of brace. It's not as supportive, but they need something a little bit extra. Definitely good to have on hand too, even just for injuries. You fall, you mess up an ankle, you don't have an ace bandage. Oh, I have a little ankle support. Let me put that on for a couple of days, give myself some extra support.
Yeah, because anything to help get you through the initial, especially like a fall. Like, you don't always think, oh, it's not going to be that bad. And then like the first day or two after is the worst.
It's like, oh, okay, that was that, like you don't realize how rough some of that can be on your body.
Yeah. And that is one thing with CP. It changes by the day. And I mean, like, it can affect you differently every single day. Whether it be like, oh, not as tight today, I feel good. But then tomorrow, oh, yeah, it's one of those days. Or, oh, no pain today, but, oh, tomorrow,
And there are so many factors: stress, the weather, if you have an increase or a decrease in how often you're exercising, your body's going to respond differently. And I think that's one of the overwhelming things about CP, is that there's just a lot that can affect where you're at physically, and I think you have to really try to be in tune with that and work through what might be causing this, what steps can I take to manage this the best.
So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us after the show, feel free to message us on our Facebook page, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. And if you'd like to be a guest on our show, feel free to do the same as well, and let us know. We can try to set something up for you. And
yeah, our schedule for upcoming guests here is pretty open. We switched to every other week a while back just to kind of try to free up our own schedules more, but we've got quite a few openings coming up, so just let us know if you're interested in being a guest. We always love having our guests, and in fact, my own mom says she likes some of those shows the best, just because we get so many different perspectives from different people who have gone through, similar but yet different challenges to our own. So,
and Miss Edwina Wilson, who was kind enough to give us this show, is having a conference towards the end of March. I believe it could interfere with our regular schedule of shows, because it's like, I believe, a week-long event as far as I'm aware. So we don't know right now if we'll be back in 2 weeks, if we have to make adjustments of coming back a week sooner, or we're not totally sure how that's all going to work, because we want to, if we have to, we're going to play the conference on our page here so everyone can see that, because that is it is a powerful conference what happens. There's so many different stories and perspectives to hear with CP. So it might not be us in 2 weeks, but
if you're listening on Disability Global broadcast, you'll be able to catch part of that conference during our next scheduled showtime, guys. So be on the lookout for that.
But things are ever changing. We might not have all the information, so we will keep you updated. But thank you for watching with us today. I hope, like Kristina said, that this was helpful to you. It was helpful to me in things when as she was learning these things, I was learning these things. Like, oh, Tricia was, hey, here's this thing. If you need to try it, try it. So I hope one of these things helped you. thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, this has been a great show. We really appreciate all the comments and questions, and we wouldn't have this show without all of our viewers. So
we really appreciate you watching with us on Facebook Live, and if you're a normal radio listener on Disability Global Broadcast, we really appreciate you. And let's remember to keep on living,
laughing,
and succeeding. And we will see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. We'll see you in a couple weeks.